So I've started to read this book, and this book has been pretty interesting to say the least, at least in the beginning stages of it. And maybe when I'm done the book, I'll maybe do a full review on it and actually talk on this show about the many important, amazing, and really real, like that speak to me type of lessons that are talked about in this book. The book is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and it was honestly it was a recommendation from some big podcaster that I was like, you know what? Let me just give it a read because it sounds something interesting. And when you read like the foreword, you read like the intro to the book. They're basically saying, "Oh, this guy, he wrote this book and he kept it hidden for like 70 years. His wife didn't want him to release it because she was afraid that there'd be like too much backlash or something like that, that they're exposing too many secrets of the universe or whatever." And then he died, and then they both died. The guy died, the wife kept it, and then I think it went to his brother or something like that, and the brother's wife didn't want him to release it. He didn't want him to release it either. Maybe like his son or something like that. So then eventually she died first. So then once she died, the son released it, and and now we have this book which is here today, which I'm reading right now. Basically, basically, like, obviously, spoiler alert. If you want to read the book for yourself, don't watch. But I'm going to kind of tell you what happened, and at least in the beginning stages, and tell you the lessons that are out there and how it applies to my life, how it can apply to your life as well. So basically, he was It's a very old book. Like, it's like pre World War I is like where it starts. Like his story. The Napoleon Hill who's the author. I don't know if I said it. That Yeah, I'm pretty sure I said it. But Napoleon Hill, his story starts before the World War, before the First World War, basically. And then he tells the story as he kind of grows older and as he's learning. Basically, he sets out to create the most concrete formula ever made for success and individual achievement. That's what he's setting out to do. And he creates this formula. And then he kind of forgets about it, and he talks to a guy who I forget his name. I believe Mr. Carnegie. I don't. I think it's Andrew Carnegie. I'm pretty sure that's his name. But again, he definitely has, like, he's a very important figure in that time as well that Napoleon Hill talks to. And Carnegie talks about how if you actually want to achieve things in life, you have to go through a state of emergency, a state of immense fear, a state of not knowing, a state of desperation, not knowing where you're going to go, what's going to happen to you. And and at first Napoleon Hill kind of didn't really see the meaning in that. He didn't really understand what Mr. Carnegie was talking about. And he went through his life basically. He kind of forgot about his philosophy, his individual achievement rule book or whatever, and he kind of just put that to the side. He went into the world of business basically. He bought some businesses, he was growing some businesses. He was actually doing very well in those businesses, and then this is where it kind of sounds very familiar to me. He would be working jobs, he'd be doing things, and he would be very quickly feeling dissatisfied with it. He'd really quickly be just feeling like not really fulfilled by it. So he'd feel the need to quit, and he would just quit. He would just quit, and he would just be bouncing from job to job, and then he'd be starting businesses from business to business. He'd be making businesses that would be super ultra successful, and he would just be quitting, leaving it to his associates, and the business would just die because he just wasn't feeling it. Like, he just wasn't feeling good about it. And he was looking to be happy, he was looking to be fulfilled, and he wasn't feeling any of it. And then he went through those very same emergency experiences that Mr. Carnegie talked about, where he felt that desperation, where he was broke, he had no money, he couldn't pay for food. He'd be looking at his kids, and his kids would be looking at the neighbors across the street with a Christmas tree, and they wouldn't have a Christmas tree because he was completely broke. He had no money because of the decisions he made to stop working, to quit. And then he had another realization, of course, when there was like this whole scandal that came out, and people were trying to go out and kill him because of some relationship he had with some other reporter that got killed. And and then he was literally just hiding in one of his like cousins or his family member relatives house for multiple months, just in fear, like cowering in fear, not even leaving the house. And it was in that moment he also realized, like, oh, this is a terrible feeling, right? And then he goes through how he had like a supernatural out of body experience where his conscience took over, his other self, which is what it's called, took over, and he then made some decisions to go out and overcome those fears. And that's kind of where I'm at in the book, and it kind of gets it will get more and more descriptive and more intense. But really, the main point that he talks about is that you basically have two spirits in your body. You have the spirit of fear and you have the spirit of faith. And then you have to ask yourself the question: what has been dictating your life up until this point? And I've been talking about this type of an idea on my show for a long time. That it's like most of us go through the spirit of fear, and it only takes some very, very intense moment of desperation for us to wake up and realize, oh, we have been living our life in fear. We have to move in a better direction. We need to do better. We need to improve. And it really goes down to the fact that the reason to change must be bigger than the reason to stay the same. So most of us don't have a big reason to change. So we stay the same. We meander along. We become content with the misery and the mediocre. And only when something crazy happens to wake us up, you realize just how much you've been wasting your life. And it has to take that moment of you feel that desperation, that emergency call to action that happens in your life, that traumatic event in some people's cases that happens in their lives, for them to finally realize, I've been just wasting my time. Like, what am I doing? Let's improve, right? Let's actually make this change to improve. And I look at my life, and I look at kind of the initial kind of beginning stages, reflections in this book, and I look at my life and I ask that question. I'm like, yeah, most of my life has been dictated by fear. I've been quitting my jobs a little bit too prematurely rather than riding it out and being disciplined. And I look at that, and there's a lot of similarities, and I looked at just the story, the initial first chapter, and it was very, very scary how similar the types of things he was dealing with relate to my life. Not to the extent, because he was rich. He was making businesses. He was making a lot of money, and he quit having that much money and having that much success because he was trying to find something more. But also because he was in the spirit of fear, he didn't really want to see things until their end, basically. And but still, it's very eerily similar to some things that I see in myself, and I'm sure maybe it's similar to some things you might see in yourself if you're going to read the book for yourself, or if you're still here watching this episode, like me talking about this type of concept. And like, I've had the pieces, you know what I mean? Like, if you've been watching this show, I've been mentioning this type of thing, fear versus faith. Of course, my belief in God and how faith is way greater than the fear that you have. Fear versus faith, the whole like thing where you have to go through a traumatic event, the whole thing where you have to go through like a difficulty before you finally realize what your calling is, where the meaning is in your life. Like, that's kind of like, perhaps it is like the secret of the universe. It is like the secret of God's plan for your life. And like, just reading this book is kind of just reiterating and putting these feelings back into my mind, and just realizing that, like, yes, I have faith in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I pray every night, and I grow in faith every day. But when push comes to shove, when I had to make decisions in my life, it's been based off of fear. I have been basing way too many things off of fear. When emotions are high, I can't, like, that spirit of faith, I can't help it to take over, right? This guy, Napoleon Hill, he had this out-of-body experience, right? Now, you could say what you want about it, and if you read the book, you can say, like, his conscience was literally talking to him, and I could say that, like, it was literally God talking to him, telling him what to do. You can say what you want about, oh, did that thing actually happen? But the fact of the matter is that he was running his life too much by fear, and he realized that actually, if you do everything by faith, truly not caring about anything else, truly not caring too much about the things of this world, just going and taking meaningful action, that will help you achieve many amazing things. Like, he took a risk where he put himself in a hotel that was like a super fancy hotel that he only had enough money to pay for 2 nights of that hotel, but he booked himself in for a week, basically. And he was sitting there in that hotel thinking, how the hell was he gonna pay for the rest of it? Because that was what his conscience was telling him to do. So he just went and did it. He was just listening to it. It was his other self, his spirit that is derived by faith. And the whole thing is that he has to go and find a publisher to publish those very same laws and kind of teachings of human achievement, right? What you can do to actually achieve things. And he was trying to find someone to publish it, and someone to give him some money to actually help him publish it. And Like basically, he's gone back to where he started his whole journey with. He's moved so far away from it, and he's had to go back to it because that was really the way, that was the formula, that was how he can actually do it. And he said something himself that was also pretty scary to me as well, where he was like, I have these principles and I have these ideas, but I myself am unable to actually apply those to my life. I myself am sitting here in fear. And he himself was just in his cousin's house and was just cowering in fear because like he was fear of the people that were going to kill him, but he'd already moved to another city, so he wasn't in danger at all. It was literally just truly in his mind. And even after those people got arrested, and he saw in the news that they did get arrested and they got convicted, he still couldn't get out of his shell. Again, for me, it sounds eerily similar. Like, not to that extreme, but like just how like sometimes I can't get out of my shell, sometimes it takes a lot, and sometimes I make decisions based off of fear and not of faith. And if I was just acting on faith, I would go and I'd be doing things and I wouldn't have this kind of inhibitor that's in my life. So I look at that, and as I'm reading the book, obviously I'm going to be learning new things, but this is kind of my initial reflection in the beginning stages of the book. And even the things I deal with aren't the same in comparison to other people. So you might be watching this episode and you might be going through even more fears, and you might see in yourself a lot of wasted potential just because of your fear. But understand that in all things and in all life circumstances, you have the spirit of fear and you have the spirit of faith. And whichever one you lean onto, it really is your choice, really, which one you lean onto. Fear kind of sometimes has the trap of being easier, but really you give it up to God and you let your faith be the first thing that you focus on in your life, the foundation in your life. Then that will be what will move you forward, what will help you overcome those fears. And it takes time, but even I'm not in that situation. Even I talk about so many things on this show, and I can't even do them myself as well. I know that I have to be able to do them. I have to improve in this aspect, but I can't even do it myself. So it makes me feel a little bit kind of shameful. It makes me feel a little bit kind of guilty of lying, right? It makes me feel guilty of putting out a persona that maybe isn't real because I'm actually unable to do those very same things. So I read this book, and it's been very interesting so far. It's really spoken to me about a lot of the things I have to improve in my life as well. But that's really the main case for you, for your life. The message for you, the audience, if you're still watching this video up until this point, that clearly means that you still feel like you have that tendency to change within your heart, deep within you. Understand that you have those two spirits, and you really are in control of which one runs your life, the spirit of fear and the spirit of faith. And if you let that spirit of fear kind of dictate your life, you're just going to find that you lose all meaning. You lose all a semblance of happiness, and any type of joy you can ever have from your life will be just stripped away from you because your fear has stopped you from achieving your potential, from achieving the great, beautiful things that you can achieve, that God has put you on this planet to achieve in this life and in this world. But if you let that spirit of faith take over, truly many amazing things that you wouldn't even have thought possible will happen. I still have to do that. I'm still waiting for my faith side to take over. I still have way too many fears. But I know, just based on the Bible, based on the teaching, based on things I've read, based on things I've known and I've consumed and I've seen, that God has a plan for you that is greater than anything you can ever imagine. Jesus Christ has a plan for you that is greater than you can ever imagine. You have certain things and difficulties you're dealing with. You have certain wants in your life. Jesus Christ, God wants you to get there and then some, if you can truly overcome those things you're dealing with. But you don't even know. But you're still sitting there in fear, and you're not even going to get to that initial point of kind of escape velocity. So it's kind of really all down to your mind. It's really all down to your own personal philosophy and your own personal decision making. So are you going to let the spirit of fear dictate your life? Well, then you're going to wake up in 10 years or 20 years and you're going to realize just how much your life was wasted because you're telling yourself the wrong things. You're letting this thing, the devil, which is why it's called outwitting the devil, you're letting him have too much real estate in your mind. Are you going to let that happen? Are you going to let that continue to make you fail in your life? Or are you going to finally take control? And you might need that big emergency situation that sets your mind straight. But are you going to take control now and say, let's let the faith take over? That's your decision every day. When you wake up in the morning, what are you going to do with your time? What are you going to do with your life? The fear or the faith? That's really what it boils down to. Of course, there's so many other intricacies and complexities. I invite you to go and read the book as well, because Even if I'm in the earlier stages of the book, it's still been quite the ride so far. And perhaps I'll talk about it even more detail once I'm done reading it. But I encourage you to go read it as well, and I encourage you to go read other books that talk about just how great faith is and just how important it is over all types of fear in your life. That's what I gotta say for today. And if you're still here, clearly this speaks to you in some way. So I really hope you did enjoy it, and I really hope you make some changes to actually act out of faith rather than fear in your life as well. So thank you for watching this episode of the 365 Podcast. I ask you to show your support in any way that you can by leaving a like, by subscribing on YouTube, following on Spotify. I've talked about these certain concepts many other times in my podcast. In these episodes, I'll link them in the cards in the description if you want to go watch maybe me talking a little bit more in depth about these certain concepts. The whole like you have to go through a trauma before you achieve something, or the fear versus faith concept. Go and watch some of those. I invite you to go watch some of those if you enjoyed this one, if this video spoke to you in some way as well. So show your support in any way that you can, but I hope you really did enjoy this episode, and I hope that it spoke to you in some way. Thank you for watching this episode of the 365 Podcast. That is truly all I got to say for today. Again, a little shorter one for today, but the message really stays the same. Let the faith dictate your life, not the fear. Thank you for watching. Continue to glorify God every day throughout your life, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow for the next episode of the 365 Podcast.